I grew up in a Christian family, obviously. And my dad and my best friend's dad were the pastors of my second home, New Hope Bible Church in Kansas City, Missouri. And when I was around 7 years old, I asked Jesus to come into my heart on a Saturday night while I listened to my dad play hymns. And then I literally thought Jesus would be coming into my heart, and I didn't understand how there'd be enough room. But I knew I was going to heaven, and nothing in my life really changed, but I did have a desire to tell people about heaven, where I was going to go. In 2006, my family moved here to Franklin, Tennessee, and that's where my life really began to change. It was 8 hours away from my best friend, and it was my first time in public school. And I didn't really understand what an actual relationship with Jesus Christ was, and I didn't really understand what it meant when people said we were in the Bible Belt, but I thought that all of my friends who prayed and went to church were Christians. And it wasn't until 6th grade that I understand that it was a lot more, that it was more a relationship with Jesus Christ. And even though I understood a little bit more, I didn't really change anything in my life. I just understood that it was more than just praying and reading the Bible and going to church. So I continued to live my life in categories. I was a different Renay at school, at home, and at church, and I didn't really know where to find my identity, like who I was and where to put it. But at the end of my 9th grade year, I felt the weight of that because I just felt empty with nowhere to put my identity. So I put it in the world, and the world is constantly changing, so was I. I felt weighted because I was constantly trying to please the different people I was around, and the devil took this prime opportunity to tempt me with everything. I wanted to do something with the pain that I had inside, so I started cutting myself. Even doing this didn't cure my inward pain, but it caused outward and inner scars. The devil told me so many lies that I believed even on how I looked, and I tried not eating and things like that. I didn't want any of the good things that I had been taught by my parents. I wanted drugs, alcohol, or sex, or something to take away my inward pain. And at the end of that summer, the depression that was in me was visibly weighed on me on the outside. I still, though, looked forward to Pine Cove summer camps that we went to every summer. And one of my Bible studies there, we talked about different people that God cared about. And we looked up verses in the Word that had to do with that. And we looked at passages about the widowed and about the orphan. But the thing that stood out to me was Psalms 147:3. God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And suddenly in that moment, I knew that God cared about me. And that he didn't just it wasn't just love that I had heard about, but it was like he cared for me and he wanted the best for me. And in that moment, I decided I would just stop doing all of the things that I had done to try to take out my pain and anger. And I would stop turning to the worldly cures, but I would turn to God who actually cared for me. And that week, I told my siblings, I told my parents, I told my cabin, just all that God had done and who he was. And I was just so excited to share. And I was just so excited to share that God cared for the brokenhearted. My 10th grade year, I spent fighting all of the temptations that I had gone through before, but I also spent it telling everybody just everything that God had done. I was so excited to share, and I had a passion for the brokenhearted. God taught me so much that year. He taught me how he genuinely wants us, and that he doesn't just, he wants us, and he wants a relationship with us, and he wants our time and our attention. And he taught me what it meant to fear him and to put him above everything, to put him above every situation, every fear, every temptation. And at first I had this passion just to share with the brokenhearted, and I grew in my relationship with them. But just the more time went on, it turned to bitterness, I guess, and I didn't like to see all the brokenness that I was around, and I didn't like the brokenness that other people were going through. And I just stopped talking about it, and I stopped sharing, and those that I was trying to help through their brokenness, I felt weighted because I felt like it was my responsibility to take care of them solely. And through small situations in my life and around my life and the bitter feeling in me, I felt the pain of 9th grade all over again. But it was different because I was different, and I knew that I had hope in God, and I knew that God was in control, but I ignored what I knew, and I just wanted a way out. But I didn't want a temporary relief, and the devil kept tempting me with a more permanent end to my pain. I knew that if I didn't share these temptations, I'd be alone in the fight, which is never smart. And I felt shame, though, because I didn't feel like I should be thinking this way as a Christian. So I kept them to myself, and they became my thoughts and my feelings until I saw that my actions were soon being controlled by the thoughts of suicide. But for some reason, there were so many people around me that were going through the same thing, but they didn't have the rock that I had. They didn't have God. So I shared with several people the hope that they could have in the Lord and my own hopelessness, and I shared his strength and my own weakness. But I knew that God did this for a reason, because he was working through my shame and he was working through my brokenness, not only to heal others, but to heal me. I was more reluctant to share this brokenness because I was so ashamed of it, but I did, I am, and I will, because it is not about me and my inabilities, but it is about God and his ability to do anything through anyone for his glory. And through God's work in my heart, I see my purpose in life, to give God the glory and to make his name known. And that is really all that I want. And as I look back on that, or just what I've learned so much through my brokenness, I've just seen that I need God. And like that song is just so perfect, because I know I need him. I can't survive without him. And life, there's no point to it without him. And I've just looked back and I see how much God has changed my heart, and how it came from that 7-year-old girl who was just knowing that she's going to heaven. And now I know that my purpose is to give him the glory, and that's all I want. I just see how amazing he is. And recently I've been praying, I'm like, God, show me the beauty of life, because I just haven't been able to see it lately. I don't see what's so beautiful about, everybody's like, oh, life is so good. And I'm like, really? But I've been praying that. I was like, I want to see how life is good. I want to see the beauty of it, because I just don't. And he's just been showing me that through like the clouds, and I just see how beautiful they are. And a couple weeks ago, I was driving back from Antioch to my home, and the sun was setting, and we were listening to Ronnie Freeman in the car, and I literally, like, it just clicked, just how beautiful it is, and just God's glory is shown all throughout creation and all throughout here. And it's just like, thank you, God. You know, my prayer was answered through my brokenness, and through my brokenness, I've been drawn closer to him, and he's my rock, and I need him, and I'm more dependent on him, and it's just amazing to see that what he did through that. So, thank you.